particular year causes lots of deaths all over the world, especially the developing world. The tendency is as you deal with infectious diseases more effectively, then you start to have chronic diseases, which is another interesting subject for a different day. But anyway, there are lots of people dying, and it's causing a lot of financial impact, in addition, of course, to the huge amount of human suffering. Treatments are increasingly expensive and hard to afford in developing nations. And just a few examples that you've probably heard about in the news, in terms of costs, just financial costs. Things like avian influenza. In Thailand, there was over $5 billion lost just in poultry exports. You probably all heard about SARS. Here are some of the impacts of SARS on Asia. $18 billion lost in terms of GDP, demand and income earned, and how much Canada was losing every day of the outbreak. These are just some examples that there are also financial impacts, but of course the human suffering is the largest impact. The first and most important thing I want to say about how we approach this problem is we recognize that infectious diseases out in the real world are an integrative system. In other words, they're composed of interactions between potential hosts, interactions between those hosts and the environment, interactions with pathogens, and in some cases there are mosquito-like vectors or other vectors that transmit disease to continue the whole cycle. And so, of course, these are just some of the molecular data types, but the reality is we're dealing with an integrated system in nature, and if we decompose it into its parts and ignore the other parts, we really can't understand the system. So an integrative approach is the only